Ladies and gentlemen, I promised you I would have this man here. You seen the video with the reaction of me watching him on live, and it was no doubt about it. I say, yo, I gotta get him here. He's a good friend of mine, and he's very busy. He's very busy, but he made time to break down this information because y'all need this. Like, this is something that y'all, we need. I need. And there's no reason for me to be like, yo, let me just hoard this information and keep hitting them up and talk to him myself. No, I share him with my community, and now it's time for all of y'all to get to know who this man was. This man literally has all this knowledge and had it for years, but people wasn't ready for it. Like, he would talk about the digital and how this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, and literally, straight up, people probably thought he was crazy. Like, when you have so much knowledge, people are not prepared for it. They don't know how to understand what they don't understand. But now that we're in this window of digital and crypto and how it works, and they're using it as a big market tool, Bitcoin, XRP, he's literally, there's other things. There's other ways to get rich in this space. There's other tools that you need to have. Like, we need to break away from this institutional way of thinking and the way they're trying to institutionalize us with using what they want. But ladies and gentlemen, enough of me running my mouth. My brother, the marketing guru, please, Steve, tell them who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it, and we're going to get straight into it. No holds barred. Let's go.
Storm, appreciate that. Listen, Steve Bayonne, marketing score under guru on Instagram, husband, father, educator, real estate investor, crypto enthusiast, farmer, herbalist, just to name a few things. So I started a academy about 3 years ago. Formerly, I've been into cryptocurrency for about a decade now. So I've been studying the future of finance for 10 years, decided to bring the information to the culture. I've been teaching for all 10 years, but not formally utilizing the tools we have today at our disposal. So it was anybody that would listen to me. It was really friends and family first. And if anybody knows me, I've always been the guy who's been ahead of just about everything, right? I'm constantly at the forefront of just new innovation. So when I got introduced to cryptocurrency 10 years ago from a peer friend of mine, who an investor of his kind of told him about it, I dug into it and something just struck me from the onset to say, you know what, go a little bit deeper with this. And what really drew me was when you start to understand the power of the technology, you start to realize how it's going to, one, change the landscape of the future, and two, how it's our first opportunity that I've seen. I've been a serial entrepreneur for 30 years now. It's the first opportunity that I've seen that can literally even the playing field. And what I mean by that is it's the first time that information isn't flowing from the mouths of said expert financial advisor, said expert Warren Buffett, right? Like you wait for these guys, you're pretty much, you didn't time the market correctly. So I was on a ride 10 years ago, and you didn't even hear from these guys, but I knew that they were building the infrastructure in the background because I was reading the white papers, I was reading the patents that were put around the technology. So that's where I went with it. And then on top of that, one thing about the United States is we're never at the forefront of innovation. What we do is we utilize the world as the backdrop to study behavior before actually introducing it to the United States. So that's why we're always behind, seemingly behind. For those who know. So I've just been following other countries, India being one of the first ones. They've been fully digital since 2016. So that was really the first testing ground. So when people think I hold a crystal ball, no, I just went and followed the money. I followed the technology. I followed the innovation. And because the US was so slow on it, we just weren't conformed. That's why you weren't ready to hear it until they start to conform and put you where you need to be. That was the birth of Skyton Academy, to make sure I got the message out early. And this was like maybe right around the pandemic. And if you knew, the landscape during that time was everybody was an innovator. Everybody was selling something. For the first time in history, the culture had what? Time and access to money. Yeah. And once you have those two, that's a small ingredient of becoming an entrepreneur, but it's not the main one. So we could talk about that if you want to.
So I want to go straight to it, right? I don't want to delay. What are your thoughts on the overwhelming response to everybody being hype on Bitcoin and it's that thing? What is your thoughts about it? Oh, I got to get some Bitcoin. I got to get some Bitcoin. We're going to talk about that and work our way down to where people need to be. But let's talk about the main thing they know about and they hear about all day, which is Bitcoin and XRP.
So Bitcoin being the first cryptocurrency, right? This is 2008, the first block, 2009. And I came in 2015. So the industry was already being formed. Now, the thing about Bitcoin is, and Champ likes to say this, the BTC is the symbol, right? So we tend to call it beta test coin. So when I first got introduced to cryptocurrency, there was only really two things sitting at the top. There was, of course, Bitcoin, what they call Bitcoin dominance. And then there was XRP, was the number 2 asset at the time. So when I looked at both, I looked at the tokenomics behind Bitcoin. I'm just like, there's no case use to it. It really just is digital gold. And Bitcoin is not cryptocurrency. All right. Understand this. Bitcoin is a commodity. All right. It can be treated just like gold, silver. It's just a digital version of that. It's where you go to store wealth. It wasn't meant for peer-to-peer transactions. No one's sending you Bitcoin coffee or anything. These guys have a strong affinity to it, and they just really want to park money. The genius behind Bitcoin is the part of the technology, and without going too far, 21 million ever made, nothing more, nothing less. So that becomes what? It's not inflationary, it's non-inflationary, right? So unlike the dollar, where we continue to print. So when you have to think, everyone assumes that Bitcoin was started by some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. But let's think logically now, and that's what I do, right? I don't go off pure emotion, and I definitely don't go off what people say. I just pull out the logic card and hat. Why would some of the most conservative money managers in the world, right, invest in this particular asset if they didn't know who the owner was? Just let that sink in, though. If you didn't know who the owner was and there was this fairy tale story that there is a person out there, why would you risk that this person may have a partnership with Donald Trump, could have a partnership with Putin? Maybe it's the owner of whoever. Right? We know that the minute that you put a face behind something, you're going to get lack of trust. Right? So let's just go back to the facts. The technology wrapped around Bitcoin is it's called SHA-256. So it's SHA-256. Clearly, it was started by the NSA and the government. That's one of the standard grade technologies that they use. When you're in crypto long enough, you start to know that there were 4 developers that worked on it. Some of them were part of the XRP team that were the original developers behind that. They don't like to tell that story because then it adds a human element to it. And then you start to see why this coin was created. The United States knew that at some point there was going to be room for more world reserve currencies. They knew that at some point the overprinting was going to create what we have today, which is hyperinflation, and eventually, and they definitely knew that every currency only lasts 100 years before it crashes. So you have to put a mechanism in play, right? That's going to be prepared. Think about it. These guys play 1,000-year plans. You're telling me that they didn't forecast that this was going to happen? The people who created the financial system didn't forecast that this was going to happen.
We only 5 minutes into this, and I'm already blown away, y'all. The origin of Bitcoin, which I was going to get into, and ask you about how you felt about it, but it makes so much sense. They want to create this fairy tale story behind this person who invented this thing to liberate and free you. But actuality, why would they invest in this person to liberate and free you if they don't know who made it, how to control it, how to manipulate it? And it's all controlled by one person. What country in their right mind would put all their belief, power behind somebody they don't know, never heard of, who invented this thing and just put it in the atmosphere? Damn.
It's just for you to ask questions. I'm 100% certain that's it. But I'm telling you, based on my findings and my research, that's what makes the most sense to me.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this. Bitcoin, it's like it's 100,000. You know, it's ranging in that range now while we speak, 90,000 to 100,000. Do you think it will get to that ultimate number of 200, 300, 500, a million? And if so, how wide? And give nobody has a crystal ball, right? But a projected timeline. And then we're going to get into the other facets of the less the more useful coins that don't cost as much. But I want to close the door on the Bitcoin conversation about it, because that's the first thing on everybody's mind, and throw in your thoughts on it also.
Let me share something that most common Bitcoin maxis don't like to share. Maybe they don't even know. So pull up a chair. I'll teach.
Talk that talk. Talk that talk.
So again, you have to know the industry to know that this is fact. All right. There's this thing called Tether Pump, right? So Tether is a stable coin, and it's the issuer of USDT. You may know it as, right? So this is the largest stable coin by market cap. It's always been. So that means when you on-ramp into cryptocurrency, a majority of the time you're using Tether, right? We've been conditioned to use it. It was just what was there, right? Tether is also closely tied to Bitcoin. So when you hear government officials talking about there's illicit activity that happens through cryptocurrency, there's a dark market, they're 100% right with that. So Tether was brought into court by New York secretary, right? And they've been in court with them since. And one of the stipulations was Tether was not allowed to mint any more coins. So what I mean by mint is they're just pulling coins out of thin air. So they could literally throw $1 trillion inside the market, right? So what happens is when you follow the minting of Tether, you start to realize that the next asset that all that money flows into is Bitcoin. So it's not regular people, retail investors that are moving the needle at all with this asset. There's something going on in the background that allows this much money to flow through it. So when I peel back the onion a little bit more, I said, all right, how does the US government benefit off of this? Because any country, China has stopped it, Russia has stopped. There's a lot of countries, it's not a thing, right? They limit the access, people's access to it. And I'm like, why is the United States not doing it? So when you look at Tether's reserves, and one of the reasons why they got brought into court is because when you start a stable coin, you need to be backed 1-to-1. That means for every one coin you have out there, you should have $1, something equal to it in reserve, or you become what? The same thing as the US dollar. You're just making things up.
Right.
So Tether could never really show that, but they never really had the day in court. And the reason I know that they never really had we know that they didn't have the day in court yet. They're starting to cut them off now. Right. But before they did it, what the United States did is, and predominantly what the CIA did, was they went over to Tether, right? Those junk bonds that the United States used to sell to other countries that they're not accepting anymore, that they're dropping, you needed to do something with it. So guess who they called on? Their buddy that they know is washing money, and they basically took it over. They said, you guys have to carry a certain amount of US bonds and hold them in your reserve. So Tether is really just propping up the United States market right now. That's the part that people don't understand. So all of this is loosely wrapped around Bitcoin. So you have what I feel that the government created on one end. Then you have the government actually utilizing cryptocurrency for its benefits right now, its benefits to prop up the economy. This was always the plan from the beginning. So when you see the Coinbase, when you see all these international exchanges, now everybody's starting to be shut down. This is what you call Operation Choke Point 2.0. This is when the government puts things in place to slowly start to affect the way people move within a particular industry. So now what you're going to see is you're going to see the rise of traditional banks self-custodying cryptocurrency. What I mean by that is your local bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all of these guys are going to start to have cryptocurrency on their books, and you're going to be able to buy them directly from your app, the same way you do from Coinbase.
Didn't they announce that recently, right?
It was part of the Ripple case. So it is legal for banks to hold cryptocurrency. So that's been a thing, right? What happened was the banks weren't really ready fully with the technology, so they had to slow things down. This is where we can get into part 2 of Ripple and XRP. But I'm just giving you the story so I can paint the picture for you. So when you have this stable coin called Tether that is holding US bonds, it is more beneficial for the United States to keep this thing around right now until it could line up its banks, because now when a bank is chartered to do business, they have to do what the government tells them, right? Because that's the exchange. So now the banks are going to start to take over that debt. Understand? We just moved back into the gold standard. So the days of printing money, that's on borrowed time. We're moving back to an asset-based society. So now banks are going to hold gold. This is why you see gold at an all-time high. Silver is going to be a big commodity that's going to absorb everything. So everyone is looking for a flight to security from the US dollar. And Bitcoin offered the first flight to security. That's why you saw so much large money going into it. All right. So once they take down Tether, just to answer your question about what the price is, will it get to 250,000? You're going to see a retrace, because if they can't pick up where Tether left off, because now we're talking about the end or the control of the monitoring of money laundering now. They may not allow that stuff to keep happening, because Russia sidestepped U.S. sanctions through the use of cryptocurrency. North Korea is sidestepping U.S. sanctions. Countries are sidestepping U.S. sanctions now with cryptocurrency. So that's showing you how powerful this technology is, because it doesn't do what? It doesn't run through the central banks. So understand, I'll drop some on you guys to give perspective. When the internet first came out and I asked you, who owned the internet? No one can answer it, because the internet is a decentralized product. That means anybody can build something on it. But somehow we went from something being decentralized to these guys centralizing it. And how did they do it? Conditioning human behavior, right? We feel like we can't jump off of Meta, which is Facebook and IG. We feel like we can't, we have to be over on X. So you see a small group of people are controlling media now, right? This quote might put things in better perspective. So there was a girl from China right around that whole TikTok situation. And I saw the quote, and she says, Americans think they're free because they have opinions, but they have no choices. And I had to let that one sink in, because I'm just like, there is a false sense of freedom that we can say whatever we want, right? But when it comes down to making choices, you got a few things to pick from. So some people think when you think outside the box, you create your reality. But for the masses, we know that the reality is going to be created for them. And that's the introduction of Bitcoin. Someone who doesn't know cryptocurrency would only think that it's about Bitcoin because of the way it's been conditioned. My mother, who doesn't really know cryptocurrency at all, would always say, hey, how's Bitcoin going? Even though she knows, and I correct her. It becomes I call all cotton swabs Q-tip. It's that strong of a brand.
Yeah.
And then when you run the price up to six figures, it's almost like, now it makes it unattainable for most people. Right? So now we're talking about, do you feel like you're included if you bought $1 worth or $10 worth? Probably not. But you still want to be part of something, because they're telling you that you should have some of this. If you can create something that only has 21 million, and then you put enough buying pressure on it, and I think there's probably maybe 1% out of circulation right now. So that means that there's the 99% of it or 98% of it is accounted for. The biggest holders aren't sellers. They'll buy and sell. They'll manipulate the market with it. Listen, this thing is nothing more than a money laundering tool right now. It has no case use. Outside of it has no case use. You can look at the papers. I don't care what they say about, the mining and this. Yes, there is something great about thinking that we can live in a decentralized world where we can do whatever we want without the guise of any government. Because I used to think that when I first came into it, I was a big decentralized guy. But then the more I look at it, I'm like, damn, they're centralizing the hell out of this thing. It just is what it is. Like, you can't run away from a system that has been created by people that aren't trying to let go of the power. Now, the true way that we can do it is if people really got together as individuals. Forget the institutional guys that are training us. If people really got together and said, you know what, we're going to make this particular coin a thing, and then we're going to trade it amongst ourselves, then it turns into what Airbnb did or what Uber did when they came out.
Right.
They delivered something for the people, and no matter what rules and regulations it went against, the people wanted it, and eventually those levees broke on the other side. And like, you know what? They told delivery guys, listen, we can't stop these guys. This is what the people want.
Right.
So we're talking about social conditioning.
When you mentioned something that case usage, explain what is case usage of a currency, a digital currency, and Bitcoin doesn't have it, an example of the others that do, and why these would have more value or wouldn't have more value. Like that case usage, when you said it, like the average person, like, oh, what do you mean you can't use Bitcoin for anything? Like, give the
Oh,
example.
okay. Let me. I don't want people. So you could go to a dealership now and you can buy a Porsche with Bitcoin. There's things you can do with Bitcoin,
Right.
but it's not one of those assets that's going to be, because of the volatility in it, and you just can't run an economy on Bitcoin. There has to be, and some people may think you can. El Salvador is a prime example of trying to run an economy on Bitcoin.
Oh, good
Again,
example.
beta test ground, right? Go look at El Salvador and tell me how they're doing. Even down to the local merchant who's, listen, we can't calculate the price of goods when this thing goes from 100,000 to 90,000. There's no real stabilizer with that cryptocurrency. This is why you require stable coins, or why you require a dollar to be back 1-to-1, right? That's the true way to really balance something, is you set a certain amount of money in circulation and you never make any more of it. And watch how stable things could turn. So Bitcoin is a commodity. You have to name it what it is at the end of the day, right? It's a commodity. It's for store value. That's what it's meant for. Now, if you up now and you want to buy a Rolex, then so be it. But you never get into that price point again. You have to understand how these guys are using Bitcoin. So when you have a Michael Saylor who, with Grayscale, and they're just buying the hell out of this thing, right? And then they wrap an institutional product around it, and now they start to create these ETFs around it. What they're telling you is, one, they're saying, listen, come invest in our institutionalized product. We trust them. And I'm putting we, I don't, but we as a people trust what they say, right? It's really a product for the boomers. The younger generation, they're like, listen, I'll buy my own Bitcoin. I'll hold it myself. Right. But this is for the boomers. This is for people who are used to people babysitting their money. And it's okay, I can get the exposure without the risk. Understand? So now what these guys are able to do now, not only are they able to wrap an institutionalized product around it, they're able to borrow on top of that money to then buy the Bitcoin that you could have bought with that money. I'm not saying it's a Ponzi, but it definitely not by the definition of it. But if it's a street definition, that shit is a Ponzi. But because Mike Rich has created the rules behind it, then it's well within what it could do. It's no different than real estate in New York and it going to 100 million. Like, what makes it that valuable?
What makes it that? Now we hear so much about, now that it feels like now that Bitcoin hit to this price and all this, these high numbers, they're on this XRP. What is the case usage? What is the value there? Is it worth getting into? What is that thing? And I'm gonna stick with that. What is your breakdown of XRP for the public?
Listen, the XRP has grown over time, right? So if I gave you my breakdown in 15, it's totally different than now. But for the sake of time, we're talking about, in the case use is, we have a liquidity issue, right? With the way that money moves around the world. Most of us won't even realize that, right? Because we don't know the inner workings of banks. We don't know the inner workings of the SWIFT, right? This is when you're moving money internationally, the way that banks speak to each other, right? The system is old and it's dated. It needs an update, right? A lot of currency that moves is really moving based on not real-time movements in the market, but borrowing against it. This is why it takes so long for transactions to settle in the background, right? As a customer, all you care about is, I go to the store, I use my card, I buy, and it's approved and I'm out. That's not the financial system. That's for it at a user standpoint. But when you start to become a producer, right? You dig a little bit deeper and you're like, wow, this is how the financial system moves. So you realize that there's so many intermediaries in between your money and that transaction that you're not seeing, right? So that Visa, MasterCard logo, they're taking a piece of that action, right? At every settlement along the way, everybody's taking a piece of that action, all right? So as a merchant, you know that if you were selling something to somebody and it costs $100, that's not what's hitting your bank account. You'll get $90-something. Stripe would take its piece. This one would take its piece. They have to break off the system, right? This is when we're running through central banks. It's like rules and regulations. So it's this big rail. So now when you have this technology that comes along, it can literally not rely on a system or a middleman. So if I do a peer-to-peer transaction with you right now and you send me $100 worth of XRP, what am I getting? Count. $100 worth of XRP. Yeah, there'll be some fees associated with the transaction, but it's very slow, very low. So what XRP aims to do is they're looking to take over a large portion of you just think of the derivatives market. There's a lot of money in the world that moves. We're talking about quadrillions of dollars. So they pretty much have a technology that can settle transactions in seconds, 24/7, frictionless. So that's one of its biggest case use. And of course, there's smart contracts. There's a whole basket of things now. But they're going to interconnect the world and make money move. The velocity and speed of money will start to move instantaneously. That's where the major, there's other jargon that goes along with it, but I didn't want to use it as, but if we want to go deeper on another situation, we can. Because I know a lot of these guys who like love this technology, want you to speak it the same way. But one of the reasons why we're pretty popular amongst the culture is we can simplify it. Because if you read the white papers, financial literacy, it really is a language that we were never taught. So they do make it highly complicated in explaining it. Right.
Now, what I want you to do, and while you're here, is to really show the expertise and really get people different than what they heard all the time. Yeah, get XRP. Yeah, but why? Why? This is why. This is how it's going to be used. This is how it's going to change the way we live forever. And outside of that, here's other case usage of other things besides digital currency, blockchain. What is the importance of that? And freeing ourselves, like with the technology, with the phone. Like I want, like, go into what you feel they should know right now, besides all the stuff everybody's hearing. I don't, like, I'm a novice, you know what I mean? Like I talk to you, listen to you, but I'm still a novice. But it's that thing of, okay, you know what y'all need to know? This is what y'all need to know. Here's why you need to know. Here's what you need to do. And this is why you need to free yourself. Yeah, let's give them that hard talk, that real talk, what they need to know. Not every
day. That's simple enough. So what confuses people the most is the word currency, right? Because when you hear currency, you to think, what? There's only one currency in the world. Why is there so many of these currencies, right? They assume that every project is a currency, and that's the biggest mistake. So I always tell my students, listen, drop the word currency. Cryptocurrency as a whole, just that word, is nothing more than technology companies, right? They're just tech companies. Most of them don't solve any problems. They're just meme coins. They're here to just rug pull you, right? 99% of what you see out there, even the Trump coin, right? But the ones that actually have the case use, they're tech companies that are working to solve problems that we have in today's society that most people may not even understand was a problem, even if it's presented to you. And case in point, if you were to go to the store today and you bought a piece of romaine, and the reason I bring up romaine is because there's been so much recall on that particular vegetable in the last 5 years, for whatever reason. You pick up that romaine and it's bad. How do you know that you got a bad batch or there's a recall on whatever product you bought from the grocery store? How would you find out? You wouldn't, right? If you're lucky to read an article, maybe you caught it on the news, maybe something came up on your feed, right? Because information is flowing a little quicker, but it may not hit you. So that's why a lot of people get sick, right? So when you have this technology, it's a company called VeChain, and the ticker is VET, right? I always love to use it because it's one of the easiest case uses for people to understand. So they're a blockchain that's in the space of supply chain and data chain management. So what I mean by that is the blockchain is put here for us to be able to access things fast and efficient. And it's open so that way we can all see it. So I'll give you an example of what VeChain can do. So they're working in the produce industry. So when something like this happens in a grocery store or whatever store, and if they're powered by VeChain, the transaction is followed on the blockchain. So the minute that something happens to that romaine or that recall, instantly anyone who's purchased it, it's recorded and they're reached out to in real time and say, hey, Storm, listen, throw that romaine out. And then you could even, the currency part of it is you can even be credited with that set currency. You then go back to the store and make a better informed decision. So it's a matter of life and death when you have products that move through what they call the blockchain. Before you want to wrap your head around cryptocurrency, you need to do one thing. And you're in real estate, and so am I. I always ask this question, and most real estate investors get it wrong. I said, listen, if you were to buy any piece of property in the world and you had an unlimited checkbook, what would you buy? Listen, I hear people go to the end thing. I hear casino, banks, and they're just thinking about ways to make money. I said, the first thing you would buy is land, right? Because it gives you what? It gives you shit, landlord, one. It gives you mineral rights to dig. It gives you air rights to build up. Every piece of real estate starts with land, but no one seems to understand that simple concept. So when emerging technology or anything emerging comes, you want to invest in the infrastructure of that particular set industry. That's why the guy who owns the land is called the landlord. Forget what's on the land. There's a private personal family that owns a lot of Times Square. They don't care about the billboards and all that other stuff. Pay the rent on the land. That's where the value lies. Because when Tower Music closes, it's a whole nother guy that comes in. When that one closes, they don't care. The value is in the land. So the same thing with cryptocurrency. So when you start to understand blockchain technology, then you start to see, okay, I see what this technology is put here for. And it's to make our lives run more efficiently. It's to also remove friction from things. I can tell you that anytime there's a middleman in something, there's always some F shit going on. Right? That means that they can stop your ability to move because they just don't like who you are, or maybe the color of your skin come into effect. That's called a centralized system, meaning there's ownership and then there's rules, and then you got to work for a board. You're always being told what to do in centralized systems. Now, when you get these blockchains that are being built on decentralized systems, which allow access for everyone to freely see what's happening, welcome to a new system now. Right? Wouldn't you like to move without somebody, a bank teller telling you it's 10,000, you have to fill out this tax form? Wouldn't you like to move on your asset and just pull out a loan within seconds because you have an actual asset that you can borrow against instantly in the DeFi market? This financial system wasn't set up for us to really thrive in, right? If you don't know how to use it correctly, I don't care how many properties you have. If you don't file your taxes correctly, know how to utilize the write-offs, you can find yourself paying way more money. This was a financial system that was it's a rigged game, guys. Yes, you can make a lot of money in it, but you have to go outside the scope of the United States in order to preserve your wealth, because this country's looking to take it. That's the part that you guys miss.
Say that part again, brother. Live on that part again. Got to do what? Tell them again what they got to do.
If you want to play the wealth game, you have to open up your educational level outside of the United States, because that's where you actually go to preserve and grow wealth. The United States is a great place to make the money, but when you start moving it out the country, whether it be the Cayman Islands, there are just some places in the world that offer you shelter from this wild tax system. You understand? And if you think those billionaires you're following are public people, you're bugging. They move in the private. So we're not the same. Hence why if we were to amass $1 billion, we probably wouldn't know what to do with it. Have all the full picture of what can be done with it.
Yep.
So be careful with what you ask for. So we're talking about a piece of technology that's put here right around the same time that the US dollar is ending its lifespan. But you got to want to believe that, because I got people that says, what are you talking about? There'll never be a dollar bill again. I'm like, listen, it's slowly out of circulation now. I'm not saying right now, today, but I'm telling you that in the future, there's not going to be any more paper money, just like we don't handle change the way we used to. So we've already been conformed for this whole digital world 10 years ago with the debit card and the credit card, right? We're here now. Now it's a matter of, can you wrap your head around how new companies are being formed? That's the second part of this human behavior part. People just can't believe that. Why aren't companies formed by LLCs anymore? I'm like, because that's old. But you didn't get the memo yet, because the white boy didn't put out a class on it yet, or it hasn't been fully built out yet. So they're not in full control of it. So that's why I tell people it's an opportune time to understand how this works, because you could be at the forefront. It's like picking up Apple when it was 37 cents. If you wait for Warren Buffett, he'll tell you, listen, I don't bet on emerging tech companies because he's old. He doesn't know how to read it. We still have some old boomer parents who think that, oh, I'm going to give my kids some stocks. And what do? They go to the blue chip guys, the Fords, the cable companies. And they're like, Dad, listen, no one's watching cable. And if you don't know that as an old person, you're just like, what's happening? Oh, it's streaming services now. But if our parents, coming from the generation of the boomers who, we were growing up in the 90s during the tech time, if they would have took the time out to learn about the technology, They could have saw what these guys were building, because when you look at emerging tech, they'll give you the vision far out. Right now, what you do with it, you have to have good discernment in business to know how to read it. This is why I'm really successful in understanding the cryptocurrency space, because I'm not looking at it from a user standpoint or even a producer standpoint. I can see it for what it is because I'm a serial entrepreneur who's always looking to innovate. So when I'm looking at things, I can see that can be a good business. Now, whether or not that company can work is going to be based on the people behind it. But I know every premise of what blockchain technology and cryptocurrency is put here for. Every cases that I've read are all things that are viable that we have to do better at as a society, because we're no longer. So just again, life and death with the recalls. We have to find a system that can speak to us immediately. Another example, VeChain has a partnership with BMW. What do you think that's about? So when you start to put that technology inside of vehicles, now this is a technology now with VeChain. The CEO of VeChain used to be the chief technology officer over at Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton is one of the backers of VeChain too. So there you go. When he's a Chinese guy, so when he broke off, one of the first things he wanted to do was put chip technology inside of luxury goods, because of what? Counterfeiting was a problem. So now with VeChain technology, they start to implement this chip technology into all consumer goods, anything of value. It doesn't have to be luxury goods, sneakers. Now you can test what? You can see for authenticity. You can see where it was made. You can see how many owners it had. So we're talking about, this is a whole aftermarket that could be built out here. So with the relationship with BMW, when I looked at it, even before looking at what the case use was, I said, you know what? I know what they're going to do with that. When you have a car, you never know the history of the car unless it's been in a car accident and it's on file, but the true history of the car. Then I can remember going to the Ford factory in Detroit, one of the best places to visit if you like process. I love a process. And I'm watching this process and I'm like, damn, these guys look a little lazy. They might be missing something. The guy says, nah, they're not going to miss anything, because if you don't put in a screw during that line of process, the conveyor doesn't move. So I'm like, got it. So now when I look at the VeChain technology, because I've had that information, because I was intuitive and I asked questions, I knew how that could work. So now when you put technology inside of a car, literally the car of the future will scan and it can tell you if it's ever been an accident, what parts have been removed, what aftermarket parts were put in there, right? How fast the person drove it. Damn, it could even tell you how much rain fell on a car if they wanted to. But all of it is accessible through this thing called a blockchain, a place that you could verify and store information, and everybody has access to it. It becomes more honest of a society when things are given to you. Like,
how important is that blockchain for everyday usage? Which I know on the side of real estate, titles, deeds, closings, like birth certificates, like everything, you name it. People need to understand how important this blockchain will be, as far as not just verifying goods, a life, a living, items, ownership. So go down that rabbit hole, if you don't mind, of how important the blockchain, and also investing in the blockchain and thinking past just these currencies, these crypto coins.
that's the part, right? So there are cryptocurrencies who are blockchain. So it's a matter of just getting that foundational understanding first. The blockchain is the biggest invention since the internet. And the reason why it's even bigger than the internet, because it utilizes the internet. And this is why things feel like they're moving 5 or 6 times faster. And the cryptocurrency AI automation is moving faster than the integration of the internet, because we needed to build the internet out, right? We had to get the speed together. You had to get a personal computer at your house. We had to create this thing called a mobile phone. We had to just get everybody online. So the internet today is different from the internet of 10 years ago, and definitely different than the internet of 20 years ago. So the new iteration of the internet, when they talk about Web 3.0, because right now we're in Web 2.0, which is what we see today. Social media, us being able to do this interview, and I'm here, you're there, doesn't matter where we're at. But the Web 3.0, that's the new layer. That's where the blockchain is sitting on. That's going to then start to digitize just about anything in the world. Ownership. So if you talk about closing a property, listen, it doesn't take 30 days to close a property. We know that. And it doesn't take 60 days. What's happening is you have the most inefficient system that has what? Intermediaries. This title company has to do this. This one has to get a water cert. That one has to do this cert. What are the taxes up until the day of? Yeah. When you're closing on the blockchain, utilizing, let's just say Bitcoin right now, those transactions can close within the same day. Because once you do your walkthrough, that's it. There's nothing more to talk about. Everything else is a formality. Everyone's there to take money out of your pockets, bro. because every aspect of closing a transaction is what? A fee.
Yep.
A cryptocurrency HUD statement is 1 page. It may not even fill the whole page. So what happens is the water department puts their information on the blockchain. The energy department puts their information on the blockchain. The taxes put their information on the blockchain. Now, when it sits there and we do the transaction, everything gets calculated every millisecond. Right? Because that's what it is. It's a calculation. Why is it taking so long? But then you're waiting on the money, right? The lender's got to put the money together. Come on.
Yeah.
How slow is that process?
Bro, when I know being in real estate for so long, it drives me nuts when this one got to call this title company, got to get confirmation from the lender that they got these they need these same documents I gave them on another closing, or all these documents. If all this stuff was in a blockchain and I'm closing real estate over and over again, you don't need to keep asking me for this stuff. My LLCs are there. My good standing in that state is there. All this tax stuff is there. It's already in the blockchain in the system. I'm buying a property. Look this up. Here it is. Boom. Now let's get it done and let's close it one day. But yeah, I look forward to getting there. So here's my other thing also. With the blockchain, what are the thoughts on people being able to say, you know what, my property is worth $2 million. I could refinance my property with a bank, or I can create a currency from the equity in my property. It's $2 million. I got $1 million worth of equity. I'm going to sell equity in my property, and people can now have ownership of it in the blockchain. And we can go into examples where they actually, some companies are using that now within only parts of, I think you did it with a basketball or something like that. So yeah, that was fascinating, brother. Break it down.
Tokenization, or RWA, which is real world assets. Those are going to be two big things you have to understand what they are in the future. Tokenization of an asset, and granted, every asset in the world is going to be tokenized. Every single one of them. This is when companies, and I'll take it to the streets on this one, right? So you talking about breaking down something to its most common denominator. This is when the biggest guys in the world, right, can start to give access to everyone, right? Which this is important. Financial inclusion for everyone. And why do you feel like that's important? Because normally, in order for us to raise capital, and probably 90% of the deals that we do are probably money that's coming from private families in Texas, if I had to guess. That whole hard money world,
yeah,
that doesn't flow through banks, that's private money. Right?
Yep.
It's being put to work. They know that it's as safe as an investment can be because it's backed by an asset. It's beautiful. All right. So when you look at the ability to say, you know what, I can tell you this right now, in 5 years, there's going to be no more boardrooms. Like the days of having investors having controlling interest in your company, you'll be dumb to set up a play like that if you're a new company. Because every single big guy has been kicked out of his own company before, right? We know that. Steve Jobs a few times, this happens. You get so big that you let these guys in the room, and those are the adults in the room, right? No matter what idea you had, you tend to lose ownership of it when you go public and you create a board. They set up a financial system that makes people feel like you need to play the game with them in order to be successful. Right? So you can shoot an independent film and actually net more money than the bigger films that by the time they kill the budget, they may not net anything sometimes. But we as a culture is always caught up in the look. We're caught up in the gross, and we forgot about the net. We barely know what a debit and credit is. It's down. I'm just being honest with you, right? Because the people that grew up spending on debit cards, they don't know what debit and credit is. You had to balance your book. You had to do the math. Now all of a sudden you're just tapping. Now tapping, you could scan your hand. Like, how are you controlling your money at that point now? How are you controlling your ability to say no sometimes? The system is it's great for producers and it's horrible for consumers who don't produce more than they consume.
Wow.
And it's about to move faster and become more convenient. So just imagine. And it's about to be controlled. So that means now they can actually, because it's programmable, They can tell you what to do, where to spend it, where to go.
See,
This is already happening now. So that's why I say when you invest in cryptocurrency, it's not so much the investing in the set asset, it's the investing in the knowledge that's then going to show you. This is why 3-4 years ago, I wasn't the nice guy online, because I'm like, yo, that Airbnb, that real estate stuff, I'm like, yo, that stuff's about to crash. It's dead. People weren't understanding what I was saying. They were emotionally caught up in it because you were invested in it.
yeah,
Listen, I was in Airbnb 14, 15 years ago.
yeah.
I was one of the first guys in that. So I know the model and I know the economy. And because I know cryptocurrency and what's coming in automation, I'm seeing the writing on the wall. And if these companies don't innovate to integrate any of that stuff, they're going to be taken over by the technology that I study every single day.
Yeah, bro, you're not only, I'm the bad guy now. I'm the
Okay.
guy selling all this real estate, telling people don't invest in real estate if you're not a developer or if you're not doing apartment buildings of that nature and you have some kind of government program with 30, 40 units and they giving you money. Why would you run around here trying to buy single family homes? Those days are over. Why would you want to go and get a tax lien property in a bad neighborhood why would you want to get bad asset with a bad tenant, with a bad job that's going to be taken over by technology, soon won't be able to pay you rent. So now you have a bad asset, no money coming in. How are you going to refinance it? How are you going to resell it? How are you going to do anything? Because you're following an old pattern. And I got out of that pattern and I'm telling people, look, my world is looking at trading, digital currency, understanding options, understanding leaps, taking my money, leaving the country and work outside of the United States structure. Me and you talk about that all the time. But people are like, yo, word, really? I'm like, y'all don't get it. But by the time you get it, it's too late. You have to start thinking 5 years, 10 years. If you can't think 5, 10, look at least 5, 20, 30. All the writing, look at the stories of how Black wealth is going to be gone by 2030. Why are they projecting these things? Why is it's looked at it this way? Everything is moving so fast. I remind people there used to be a time when we used to drive through the toll and give people money. You woke up one day and they were gone. And I want you landlords and you people who are sitting around thinking your job is safe. It's not. They forcing people to go back to work federal. And now some people realize, yo, I was making more money home who started businesses and now they could. But you got people forced to go back in the workforce. They showing you that billion-dollar people are going to run a government, and you think they're going to really be concerned about you, but you still online arguing about Democrats are doing it for me. Republicans are doing this for me. That's the solution to your downfall. Your wealth is to blame it on a Democrat or Republican. No matter who is president, you still had to go to work. No matter who won the election, you still had to do overtime. You still had to pay your mortgage. You still had to pay your rent. Let go of the thought process of our parents and grandparents before us because they had limited choices. They didn't have tech schools. They didn't be able to get bank loans and Navy Federal. They didn't have social media. All they relied on was somebody else coming to save them, either giving the middle class, giving them some kind of opportunity to buy real estate with the Housing Fair Act of 1968, which was signed, but it didn't help move us to buy real estate until the late 70s. They were waiting for a law, waiting for a president, waiting for somebody. We don't have to wait anymore. Stop complaining about somebody's not giving you something or doing something and look in the mirror and blame yourself. Everybody knows somebody like me or you, bro, who doing something, but they looking at us going, nah, I'm good, yo, I'll wait. And then when shit get close to where we've been telling them, then they want to bang our lines, hit us up, follow us, send us DMs, want to use the relationship card. Yo, bust me down. Tell me what happened. Tell me what's going on. Now you get it? The urgency is there. And my man is on here for a reason because I want him. He speaks like me, like he doesn't hold back. The urgency of what y'all need to learn and what you need to do. Like I'm gonna set up and give you back the floor. What blockchain situations people should be looking into, going, learn this, go to here, learn this new technology, go to these free classes, start investing in this thing because it's an open floor now and eventually we'll get to this thing. Like, what are those steps that people need to get educated and invest in and start thinking different? Help people out with that, my brother.
So listen, it's twofold, right? So because of the popularity of cryptocurrency right now, literally our business has grown like exponentially, right? Just now, there's two types of people coming in right now. Actually, there's one majority of type of person coming in right now, and it's one of the FOMO guy, the fear of missing out, right? All of it is a well-scripted movie. So Donald Trump comes in, he drops this meme coin, it generates $30-something billion. Everybody's trying to get in on it. I'm seeing people in the culture that were teaching something else, teaching cryptocurrency meme coins now. So I'm like, oh shit. Oh yeah, this is it now. People are starting to pay attention. But when you start to see those guys poking out, and I'm telling you, and you know who those guys are? Those are the guys that never talked about cryptocurrency 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know how you just go down their timeline. What you can't recreate is you can't recreate content that never lived. So if you go back to our timeline from the time we started, it's all verifiable. All of it. I was talking about crypto when it was hot, when it was not. Like listen, there was more not days than ever in 10 years, especially when you have a long-term mentality. So what I tell people is I say, listen, even if I gave you the top 5 coins to invest in, you're still going to ask a few questions. How much should I put in it? Where can I buy it? How long should I hold it? You see the series of questions?
Yeah.
An investor question. That is somebody who's operating from a FOMO mentality. And I'm not here to shame you. I'm just telling you that an investor would do what? It's due diligence first. Because you don't know what these other guys are saying on the internet. I'm listening to a lot of these guys in the culture that are teaching y'all cryptocurrency right now, and they're not telling you the right thing. And the reason I know that they're not telling you the right thing, because like how I go in the comments and people are like, man, you're the smartest guy I know. And I'm like, yeah, it says the who. Even for my students, I tell them all the time, verify everything that we say. We teach you to find a source of information to question all things. We don't just tell you, oh, invest in the big 3, Bitcoin, and it wasn't even, XRP wasn't on there. Now all of a sudden it's big 3, right? Oh, just worry about the top 2 investments. These guys have been trained institutionally. Like guys who are in the stock market, and I'm not saying that they can't be good crypto investors, but I'm just telling you that I actually do this shit for real. I've dissected it. I can go, you put anybody in front of me and we could talk about this. We can talk about it from a practical level. I'm not saying I'm going to regurgitate all the shit that I read in white papers, because half of it, you don't like, what does this shit mean at the end of the day? I have a different way of discerning information. So if there's a blockchain I want you guys to look into, there's one called Avalanche. And here's why I tell you to look into Avalanche. So just the other day, a couple months ago, the state of California put 42 million car titles on the Avalanche blockchain. Now ask yourself, what is the issue with car titles? It takes time to get the car title. There's a lot of fraud associated with cars. That means you can't really verify the owner sometimes, right? You buy a fake car, fake VINs and all that other stuff. So when you start to put things and that sort of information on a blockchain, it becomes more secure of a transaction. So now California went from 3 weeks to 6 weeks to get a title to happening in seconds, because they can verify all the information that's on there. Buyer, seller, release car title. Just showing you the power of the way that transaction should be done. We shouldn't have to be waiting in line to get an ID or waiting in line to do this, or it's just an old system. That does what? It allows another city agency to put up a building, to then pay rent, build that economy up, and then it puts some people in seats. It gives them jobs, but we know that those jobs aren't worth anything at this point now, because they don't even treat you right when you go into some of these agencies. So we know that the entire system is on borrowed time, because I'm able to study the industry, cryptocurrency and blockchain. So now when you threw AI in the mix, which AI has been around since you see how late we're to a party? That's created by government. All technology is created by government. Do you remember in 1992 watching a war in Iraq? Watching the images of that, streaming. We didn't even have the internet. What are we watching right now? That's why I said, you think that these guys are at the forefront of this technology? Come on. So when you look at the Avalanche blockchain, you look at what they solve, you ask yourself this question: would they put all the situations on once they test it and they see it's verifiable and it's working? It does what now? It saves people on time. It saves money for the state of California. There's no more mailing system. So when I start to look at what the blockchain is going to do, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to enhance the way you do business as a business owner or a company or just something, or it's going to destroy everything in its path. So when you can see that technology, you studied it for 10 years, don't sit on a stage with me and try to push something on somebody that I know for sure is about to be on borrowed time. Don't put anybody on the stage with me. And that's what's been happening. I can't go on first. I can't go on in the middle. And I damn sure don't want to close that show. You will not have sales. And it's not that I'm doing this because I don't want people to make money, but guys, just because you're a business owner doesn't mean that you have innovated. Most of these guys that are teaching have never done business prior to the pandemic. Yeah. So you don't have time in market. So that means that, and again, if you start making more money teaching than you do in set career, then that means you're no longer in the field anymore. So you're probably not keeping up with innovation.
True.
You're just selling courses at this point now. That doesn't work in 3 years. It won't work in 5 years. Like Storm told you, I've sold my portfolio. Our family has sold our entire portfolio in the United States. I started to see the writing on the wall. I can't control the water, sewer. My dumpsters are going up and everything is going up in price. And you think, oh yeah, Section 8. You think Section 8 is keeping up with the rate of the increases on all these prices? So my basis of what I came in at the properties early, yeah, it made sense. But the minute the pandemic happened, it's, that work from home just increased the price on everything for everybody. And when you start to create inflation, all it is the government taking back money from its citizens. But what I do pay attention to is when they say own nothing and be happy. That's one. And then the other thing I look at is the United States government is looking to own 50% of land in the United States.
Own how much? Say it again?
50% of land. We're not talking about the parks and all the reserves that they have, like land. So that means they're going to come into people's homes and take them from them. So how are they doing that? Through the use of increasing taxes, increasing utilities, increasing the cost of doing business. So when you're a small landlord with one or two properties and then that tenant is slow to pay or doing whatever, no landlord could really afford their rent roll on their own. And that's the true way to really invest at the end of the day. You need to be able to pay for this in case these tenants don't. So you Section 8 guys, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody. I'm just telling you, don't think that this system is going to be around forever like this. So when these guys talk about own nothing and be happy, the very thing that's going to happen in this country is they're going to bankrupt this country, right? Force everybody on their knees, meaning sell or just let go of shit. And then when the system gets reset, they control all the assets because 10 years ago, there wasn't institutional money in the hood. So ask yourself now, ever since the pandemic, I've been chasing tax lien sales and nothing is at these sales anymore. So if we were on backlog since the pandemic for real estate, right? If we were on backlog and only somebody who knows real estate that purchases from these auctions to know that these properties have been sold to institutional guys in packages overnight without you knowing it. I got friends in the game that buy it and then they sell it to guys like us and then we cherry pick. So if you don't understand that or you weren't taught that foundational understanding of how real estate flows, keep buying in the hood.
Tell them.
Buying in the hood. Because that's not a real estate strategy. That's not the only real estate strategy that's out there. It starts to limit you. It keeps you damn near a red line, right? Because the cost of the hood property is low. We want to come in with the least amount of money as possible. When I started to analyze deals, I used to run across all the guys. I used to listen to them, the top guys in the industry. And they're like, if you can analyze a $100,000 deal, you can analyze a $100 million deal. And they were right about it. Now it's the belief of, can I raise the capital to bring that to the table? But then you don't always need capital because if you can analyze, you can bring a team together and you can formulate that. They won't teach you that in those books, right? You have to use this person's title guy. You have to use this person's lender. No, there's different ways of raising capital. That's non-traditional. I'm 30 years in on business and I have a way of just seeing shit. This is a gift. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not here to say that I'm perfect in the way, whatever, but in the way that I see things and how things are created, I see a business in everything. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing is I'm just analyzing the business of America now. And I'm starting to realize, we are a product of this country. We ain't operating correctly. So when you see the blockchain and innovative technology, I'm just like, you know what? I knew that from the first day I saw it, I had that pit in my stomach and I went with it. And even more so, I had strong conviction, no matter how bad things got for me in those 10 years financially, I made a pact to never sell anything because I can't get those prices. And I'm up in portfolio. But you know what the normal guy would tell you? Oh shit, if you 10x your portfolio in 10 years, you're stupid for not selling it. But no, you're dumb for not understanding that there's more to go. Now, I'm not saying that's good for everybody. You got to take care of your house first. Because if it got really that bad, I would have had to just do what I had to do. So when you look at this technology storm, it is put here for us to understand it first, to see what is the outlook in the future, and then you can make informed decisions today. Because if you don't understand how tech is going to affect your company, this is why Black and brown people historically are the last ones in, well, first ones in, and then the last ones out every time. The recession always hits us harder than most people.
Right. Where do people get that? All right, they want to get educated now. What's that starting point? I seen some things on YouTube. I think it was you who posted something where there was some free educational classes about AI or something online, if I'm not mistaken. There's like where do people start? And also more importantly, how do they connect with you and get with your, if you got any spots open in your academy, your community, where do they go? All that good stuff.
Listen, there's free information everywhere. And I get these comments all the time. So our YouTube is 100% free. If you watch enough of those videos, and it's thousands of hours, it will get where you need to go. But some of them are 3-4 hours. So people may not have the bandwidth for that. This is why we created the Academy. When I was learning cryptocurrency, I bootstrapped it. I had to figure things out. We didn't have influencers. We didn't have guys doing deep dives. We didn't have Twitter. Like, there's a smart crypto world out there. But the issue is you have to have good discernment to know, are you investing your time, not your money? Are you investing your time in the right person? Where the culture is always going to come up short is they get attracted to shiny objects. And when it's not shiny, they don't feel like it aligns with them. So our community doesn't align with a lot of people because it holds you accountable. There's a learn at your own pace course. There's a series of things you have to do before you leave the beginner status. And the reason why I put it that way is because I know what it takes to be successful, right? So now I have to ask the person in front of me, are you looking, and my wife says this, are you looking to make $1 million, right? Grow it and preserve it, or are you looking to just make $1 million to spend $1 million? It's two different types of students. I never want the numbers at my academy. I want the right student, because I said this from day one. I said, if I can train them all correctly and we work together and they know how to find information and think for themselves, when they've invested properly and the wealth comes, we could be the biggest wealth fund manager or company in the world, right? Because now the people that I've taught, and this is why I can go to 11 wallets of individuals that I taught on the day that Trump won the election, and it amassed combined $81 million on 11 guys that I taught personally. You see the power of this technology and the power of the information? Because you could either invest in Apple at $70 or 37 cents or anything in between, wherever the price is now. But what makes somebody have a 37-cent entry?
That part.
What makes your entry 200? What makes his entry 100? Why is this guy buying Bitcoin at $100,000 right now? Stop. Don't do that. Ask yourself, why are you doing it? Because this guy told you that? I'm starting to name names now because it's dangerous. Because people really believe that people with money perceive money now. As I'm telling you, they have $17 billion coin holdings in a wallet. That doesn't mean anything. It's not realized, right? If something happened and if World War IV hit off and then all shit goes down and next thing nobody's on Bitcoin anymore, it's over. There's no guarantees until you cash the shit out.
One thing for me, I've invested out of the country, buying real estate, getting ready to go. You're in the same boat, and we talk about it all the time. If you think you're going to stay here and maintain, be able to live, survive, afford here, and have rights, which you think are rights, you're not. You're literally lying to yourself. There are other countries and other places who's going to value having less technology. Now, don't get me wrong, it's going to be there. But think about it. If you're leaving the United States with so much technology, why are you going to run to another country, sit on a beach, and then a robot's going to come serve you drinks and you're trying to get away from that? there, I need everybody to wrap your head around what the future looks like. And when you hear the word future, don't think 50 years or 100 years. The future is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Understand that word, embrace that, educate and open up yourself, your children to what it's like to not be here. When you go on vacation, start going there to think about, can I live here? Can I grow here? Is my money safe here? What's my residency? Start looking to getting visas, passports, like for other countries, because when they shut down this country here, you're going to be trapped. If you're not listening to what's going on, all you're complaining about is a party, you need to be part of a financial party. Forget Democrat, forget Republican. Don't be thinking about, they already, my brother, I appreciate it, man. Tell the people where they can reach you at, though. Your Instagram, all that'll be in the description, but give them everything how they can reach you, man.
So listen, just to give the gems, guys, I'm not endorsing any products on the internet outside of what I, because I know the value I put in that. So marketing underscore guru on Instagram, Skyton underscore academy on Instagram, and everything, every link you need is in our bio. Right. So we have a $50 a month product. You get access to the courses, you get access to live calls, you get access to the community that we built. So we have an in-house community. The reason why I wanted to make it affordable is because I know that this is going to change the financial landscape in the world, right? I'm already positioned correctly. So this isn't a play to upgrade my lifestyle. This was a purpose call right here. I had to attach something to it because prior to 3 years, I was teaching for free for anyone that would listen, and no one was executing, right? Today, they're coming back, and I'm like linking the bottom. They're like, Steve, really? I'm like, listen, I automated it since the process. Like, I no longer could do a one-on-one with you like that. They get it, though, right? Now, the reason for not endorsing other people is you, and even for me, like you need to go into my communities. You need to go read the comments underneath my pages. Do some research before giving people money now. The days of jumping out the window, now we don't even have the money to jump out the window to buy a $20,000 masterclass or to get upgraded to a $90,000 one-on-one or whatever they were doing at the time, which is fine. I'm fine with that. But what we failed to do, and what we always fail to do, is we fail to understand who we're doing business with fully. Yeah. Even our banks. Right? Because that's your number one business partner, is your financial institution. But we don't treat it like that. We just send all our capital there, and then we don't know anything else that's happening in the background. So truly, if you want to understand this, you better understand the past, the formation of money, going back to the gold standard, and even before that, and how we got on the paper money. Then you need to understand the current cycle that we're in right now. And then when you bring in cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, you start to realize where you're headed. But if you don't know where you came from and you don't know how that money was formed, remember, a lot of us have a lack of financial education, right? We don't have a real strong background in that. So if you think you're just going to come right into cryptocurrency, yes, I can get you there. But I also have a product that connects the past, present, and the future. That's usually a better entry for people because they're like, wow, I never saw the maturation of money to realize these cycles that it goes through. And then once you get that piece of it, then you start to understand the financial system in America. And then you start to tell yourself, where have I been this whole time? It really is a system that preys on the haves and the have-nots, right? Meaning the people who know, they know, and the ones who don't, that's what keeps things moving at the end of the day. America's number one commodity is people. Marketing is a big part of it, but the number one commodity is people. Slavery never stopped. It never stopped. And the reason that most people don't feel like they need to be freed is because they don't even identify as being a slave. And just let that sink in. I'm talking about, I don't care if you make $100,000 or $200,000. I have been watching this technology. It is replacing me as a CEO and a visionary. That's how powerful this technology is. So every job is at stake. Now, of course, when the tides start to rise, the person lower gets hit first. But this technology is moving faster. It's the first time in history that economists can't really predict the next 5 to 10 years. And that's pretty scary for them. So that means that there's opportunity in that too, right? There's always a silver lining, because if they can't predict it, they can't navigate it towards that. So that means if you get enough information, you can start to sway a different way, which is why we would talk about leaving America and making it a reality. You got to retool your relationship with just all things at this point. If you want to understand cryptocurrency, forget everything that you learned in your life and be open to understanding new ways of doing things. And that's just for anything emerging. But if you stuck on horse and buggy mentality, good luck. And I mean that with love, like good luck. Because we got a taste of it a few years ago. That was a small taste of it.
Man, my brother, I'm so glad we had you, gentlemen, marketing stokes. I appreciate you spending some time with me, man, hanging out, talking to the people. All this recently flow. Need y'all to never forget to always speak. Hallelujah. Peace.